everyone, I'm Allie with the Potomac Bead Company, and I'm going to show you how to do this simple idea using a link of chain. Usually it's a good idea for scrap chain if you get 2 feet and you only need 1.5 and you've got an extra 6 inches. This is a great idea to use that extra chain. This in particular is a Rolo chain, and it's really forgiving too to hang a pendant down here at the bottom. This example is using a Swarovski or a Preciosa crystal drop and some Rolo chain, as well as some magic copper check glass 6mm faceted rounds. I'm going to change mine up and use a little bit smaller of a Rolo chain. So you can use any style of chain, but in particular the Rolos are nice because they sit well. So I'm using the smaller Rolo chain here, and we're going to be also needing a head pin or some wire for whatever you want to be your drop. I've chosen a brown Amazonite faceted rectangle bead to be my drop. In addition to your chain, you're going to need 2 wire protectors to connect your chain to your beading wire. You're going to need some crimp beads, 4 crimp beads in total, a closure or a clasp for the back of your necklace, some beads to work with up the chain, and then also some beading wire to connect the beads to the chain with. The tools that are required for this are a needle nose pliers that are going to have the little flat end there, or you can use crimping pliers, either one will work. A round nose pliers to do my loops that are going to connect here with my wire at the base, and then also a wire cutters that's going to cut both the thick head pin that we're using or craft wire if you're using a wire like Beadalon or art wire to connect a briolette, and then it's also going to be used to cut our beading wire at the end. So to get started, I've cut my Rolo chain, and I've just cut 3 inches here of the Rolo chain. I'm just going to do a small section of Rolo in the middle. And what I'm going to do is start with my pendant first. So here I have just that Swarovski teardrop. I'm going to work here with my brown Amazonite. And all I'm going to do is I put it on a head pin. This one happens to be a really long head pin. It's a 4-inch head pin. Any head pin will do. You just want to make sure that it's fairly thick since you're using it as a pendant. So you don't want to be using 24 gauge wire unless you have a small bead that it won't go through anything else. But this one here is a 22 gauge head pin. I'm going to grab right after my pendant and turn 90 degrees to the back with my round nose pliers. I'm going to go over the top of those round nose, and it's a thick head pin. It's actually 20 gauge, I think. And I've switched from the top jaw to the bottom jaw, and I'm making a little loop. So I'm just making an eye pin right above. If you want to, you can wrap and coil. And before doing that, what you're going to need to do is link it into whatever chain you've picked. So you need to get to the middle of your chain. To get to the middle of my chain, what I'm going to do is line my chain up, and I'm going to find my middle. If there's not a middle point, and there's not a piece of chain that does lay in the middle, what you want to do is cut one link off so that you do have one that's in the middle. I'm going to take my head pin here, the very end, and I'm going to go through that center link of chain. I'm going to push the chain into my eye pin that I've made, so it clicks in, and then I'm going to coil that extra wire around the top. The nice thing with the briolette, you give it a little bit more of a look, but you can wrap down the briolette. This, because it just has that little look there, I'm not going to worry about it. What I am going to do, since I have a ton of extra wire, I'll just show you quick how to cut it a little bit shorter. And I'm going to take the end of my round nose pliers, and I'm going to make a loop out of that. You don't have to do this. This I'm just doing because I have a lot of extra wire. And I made a little round loop. I'm going to hold with my needle nose pliers, and I'm going to coil that wire, bending the wire in towards my eye pin. What that's going to do is just get you a little swirl. And that's just going to decorate the front of my pendant there. I'm going to press it right on top of, so I'm coiling it the whole way up here. I'll press it right on top of my bead. So it just gives a little nice look to the end of your bead. And it can be reversible too, so you can wear it on that side without or on that side with. Now that I have my chain done and I have a center portion, what I'm going to do is work on attaching the back of my necklace. So you can use a beadboard too if you would like to do that. But what I'm going to do first is attach my wires to my chain. To do that, I have my wire protectors and my crimp beads that I'm going to be working with. So I'm going to put one of my little crimp tubes on. This is a 2 by 2 millimeter gold-plated crimp tube. And I'm going to put that on to the very end of my beading wire. I have a 10-inch piece cut for each side of beading wire, and preferably you want to use 49 strand bead-along wire. 0.018 is most common, depending on what size your beads are going to dictate that, but that's what I'm using here. I'm then going to put on one side of my wire protector. The reason I like to use wire protectors is when you're using chain, it looks like a part of the chain and not just that the wire is going directly to the chain. So I have my wire protector on. I'm going to run my wire back down the other side of the wire protector. And then before I run it back through the crimp bead, I'm going to run the end of that wire through the end of one of the sides of my chain. So the last link of chain is going to sit right in that wire protector. And it's going to look like another part of the link. I'm going to then put my crimp tube on both ends of wire. And I do want to leave a little bit extra wire like this, that it's going to have a tail, because that way it's going to go up into your beads. And I'm going to push that crimp tube right down next to the end of my wire protectors. If you need to, you can bend your wire protectors in so that way you can push your crimp bead right next to them, just like that. Once I have that, you can either use your crimping pliers, or in my case I'm just using the needle nose. You could also use crimp covers after this if you wanted to make it look like a round ball. But I'm just going to go in with my pliers. I'm going to smash down on the crimp tube. And there I have my wire attached to my chain. On the other side, I'm going to do the same thing, and then we're going to get ready to bead up the side. So I now have my pendant done and my chain and my wire protectors attached to the chain. Again, they look really nice because when you look at them from the side, they look like another link of chain. All I'm going to do then is design and bead up the back of my wire here. So just like normal, and just as if you were beading a regular bracelet, you're going to be using whatever beads you choose. And you're designing it right up the back. You want to push those beads, if possible, over that extra wire that we have there from the front and let them drop down next to your project. I'm going to bead up both sides, and the length that you want, that's up to you. I'm going to bead about 5 inches on each side, 5 to 6 inches on each side, so that way I have a 16-inch necklace. And then we'll get ready to put on the ends. So I finished my design using some soapstone and some 6/0 seed beads going up the back of my pendant here. And what I'm going to do then is just put on my clasp. To put on my clasp, it's just going to be very simple. I'm actually going to end with another one of my soapstone beads. And then I'm going to put on one of my crimp tubes. I'm going to run the wire through my clasp. I'm going to go back through the crimp tube and back through the next couple beads. Pull the wire out after a bead, push the crimp tube down next to the beads, and then pull out the extra wire. You do want a little bit of space so that way they can move around. And you also don't want the clasp so tight next to the wire so tight next to the clasp. If you want to, you can also use a wire protector along the back here. That's up to you. I'm just going to go in, just do a simple flat crimp rather than a crimping pliers, and just use my needle nose pliers and crimp that off. Take your wire cutters then, and the wire cutter, you'll just trim off the extra wire. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side using one of my beads and then my crimp tube. And then my loop. My crimp tube has a little block there. I'll use the pliers to get that out. I got that blockage out there, whatever was blocked in there, with a head pin. I take the wire back through the crimp tube, pull a little bit, get ready to crimp that end with my needle nose pliers, and then I cut off the extra. And that's going to be the end. It's really simple. It's a great way to use little links of chain that you have that you may not know what to do with. If they're too small to use as extension chain, you can do a design like this where you have the pendant and the chain linked in. Again, wire protectors I think are somewhat essential for this to give it that great look at the end. It also is a fun way to make a necklace that doesn't look too heavy because you're using a lot of chain there in the front. So hopefully it gives you an idea to use some of your scrap chain, or even to get some new one. The Italian Rolo chain is really great for this when you're looking to make something. So hopefully you enjoyed this. If you get a chance, check out some of our more complicated as well as some other ideas on the rest of our YouTube channel videos, as well as check us out on Facebook at PotomacBeads.com. If you get a chance, we'd love to see you in one of our Potomac Bead Company locations. If you can't get to one of our locations, stop and visit us online at thebeadco.com, and you can shop there for the materials that you need to make this necklace as well as many other fun projects. Have a great rest of your day beading and enjoy these fun little quick project tips.